For the past few years, most new releases from the Cars diecast line have been based on cars on the road, which makes perfect sense. It's the most recent piece of Cars media after all. But it's really got me thinking, what new movie releases will they make when it comes time to make more new stuff from the movies? There are so many characters and character variants, both major and minor, across the Cars trilogy that we still haven't received diecasts of. So today, on the 18th anniversary of the first Cars movie, I'd like to take a look back at the first film and look forward to the future by making a list of cars I think should be made from the first Cars movie. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. The first episode of a brand new series I'm trying out here. You can think of this as sort of a reboot of my old Cars That Should Be Made series. This is something I've wanted to do for quite a while, going back through each major piece of Cars media to take a look at what diecasts we should get. So, let's get started. Number 1. The third RSN TV cameraman. There are so many camera cars, reporters, and miscellaneous paparazzi members in the first Cars movie that if I really tried, I could make the entire list just them. So I wanted to make sure I limited myself to only a few different camera cars throughout the list. One of the few I chose is this guy right here. On the far left of Chuck Choke Cables and Nelson Blindspot, both of whom received diecasts in 2010 and 2014 respectively, we have this camera car who seems to reuse the background SUV model that a lot of characters like Charlie Cargo have, just of course with a headset. I never really hear anyone ask for this character or even acknowledge their existence. It's all about Chuck Choke Cables and Nelson Blindspot, and rightfully so, they're both far more prominent in the shot, but this would be a fun one to get for the sake of completion, so you could have these three camera cars together. Of course, he'd have to be a deluxe, whenever deluxes come back, and he should also come with that camera, just like how Nelson and Chuck did, complete with his name written on the side. Unfortunately, you can't make out what that text says. I wonder what it does. I could have also made this list entirely up of RVs, since there are so many in the movie. That would be so great to get. For this entry, I just wanted to shout out this one with the Chick Hicks C hat. We don't really have any RVs that are repping Chick Hicks. Chick Hicks fans in the first place are really a rarity in the movie and in the diecast line, so this would be a really fun choice, helping fill in a niche that we don't have many cars from, being not only an RV, not only a Chick Hicks fan, but a Chick Hicks fan RV. That's pretty unique. There are so many different pitties, haulers, and crew chiefs we haven't gotten yet. Easily one of, if not the most fan-requested thing you'll see from Cars fans. Everyone wants more pit crew members. So I wanted to try to find something a bit more unique to ask for here. How about pitties with more accessories? Yeah, we've gotten some with tool guns in the past, but in this scene alone, you can see quite a few different pitties with different accessories. How about this leakless pitty on the left with its arms raised up, holding a Dynaco can to fill up Claude Scruggs? Or Petrol Pulaski holding a Nitroid bottle. Something I didn't even notice until making this video was that every team has a pitty who holds the pit stop sign. It would be super cool to get those as well, maybe with a movable sign just like Mater with sign. I love getting pitties with tire guns and plastic tire accessories as much as the next guy, but getting them with some more unique things to hold or in more unique poses could be super cool. Up next we have a updated Bob Cutlass. Bob Cutlass is pretty inconsistently lit throughout the first Cars movie, making it a bit difficult to identify what shade of silver or gray he's really supposed to be. The original diecast did an alright job, but the color is certainly a bit too dark. In 2019, they tried again with a Cars 3 Bob Cutlass, and while I once again think this one looks perfectly fine, it is severely missing that metallic paint job. I think they should try again with Bob by taking the color scheme on the Cars 3 variant and making it metallic. If not that, then I'd at the very least like to see Thailand release a Bob Cutlass using this Cars 3 paint job without that RSN sticker, since he doesn't have that in the first movie. That way we could have a bit more consistency between our two variants of him and they don't have to be wildly different colors. The fact that Mattel's never capitalized on making more race-damaged Piston Cup racers is something that both really surprises me and also honestly doesn't really. It would take so much time and money and resources to make brand new race damage molds for every single Piston Cup car here. Yeah, fans want it, but it would take so much time and so many resources. It would be absolutely insane to be pulled off. So while I'm pretty okay with the fact that we don't have race damage variants for 30 plus Piston Cup cars, I think it's insane we haven't at least gotten race damage Todd Marcus and Claude Scruggs. These two are absolutely iconic. They were packed together in a 2-pack for years, and it's crazy to me that we haven't gotten them. Yes, I know they were planned for like 2009. That release was canceled. We never had any images from it surface ever. We don't know if it even got to a point where they were making physical models or prototypes of any kind. The fact that they've never revisited this as a 2-pack idea is really surprising to me. You can make special damaged molds for the two of them, and maybe have it so that their roof dents could kind of line up with each other so that you could put them on top of each other and keep them that way. It would be such a fun concept. It's really a shame they haven't revisited this yet. I think this little tiny fan next to Big Al, who looks weird at him when he's screaming, is a really fun, easy background character they could do pretty much any time. The mold already exists, you know, he uses the same car model as Chucky, Matthew True Blue McCrew, etc. This would just be a fun, easy release you could do one year. Maybe you would say this is a little too similar to Bertha Butterswagon, who basically exists to fulfill the same purpose of small car who looks at a larger car in a weird way, but I don't really mind. 2022 introduced a new Mater variant with a working tow hook that could actually connect to cars and their bases that had little divots in them. These divots were added to McQueen, Otis, and Race Damage the King, which is an interesting choice, but it makes me feel like a race tow truck Tom with a working tow hook would be a great decision down the line. Of course, not every tow truck ever needs to have this working tow hook function, but it could be fun to have a variant of the race tow truck that could actually tow wrecked vehicles, like Damage the King, or I guess you could say maybe they could re-release Race Damage Mood Springs and give him the base divots. That would probably be a pretty controversial choice, actually, but still, you get my point. I think a race tow truck with a working tow hook like that could be fun. I think it's about time we get a screen-accurate Chief RPM. In the movie, it's a white rectangular car, but the diecast is a lot rounder, reusing the mold for the Leakless and No Stall crew chiefs, and it's also an inaccurate yellow color. It's really funny to me that they made the character's artwork yellow. They kind of try to gaslight you into thinking that it's correct, but you could just tell the shaping is not right. For this diecast, the Chuck Manifold model would be perfect, and we actually almost got a Chuck Manifold model with a headset with the Fiberfuel crew chief in 2019, which was cancelled. This, repainted into a white-colored RPM chief, would be perfect. To me, to this day, one of the most shocking exclusions in the history of the Cars diecast line is McQueen's pit crew. We've only ever gotten My Name Is Not Chuck, as well as a variant of him with a tool gun, but we never got the rest of McQueen's team. No tall pity and no wide pity. The fact that we're missing these guys is baffling to me. Yes, My Name Is Not Chuck is more iconic, and of course Guido goes on to be McQueen's pity from here on out, and it's the only pity he needs, but still, it would be so great to have the other two pity models for McQueen's team from the beginning of the movie here. We've gotten several variants of Dexter Hoover over the years, with a checkered flag, green flag, and yellow flag variant, but we're missing the white flag, which actually appears pretty notably in the movie. A white flag in racing denotes the final lap, and Dexter, with his white flag, was actually featured on the card back of every diecast in the Final Lap collection. In 2020, the Cars 3 flag waver Chris Rostopski would receive her own white flag variant. So I think it's about time Dexter gets his own. It's also been a very long time since he's gotten a new variant. We've gotten the fans that sit on Mia and Tia's left and right, JW and Christina Whelan, several times, but we've never gotten any of the ones that sit above them. Since they went out of their way to make diecasts for the cars next to Mia and Tia, I think it would be so cool to get the ones that sit above them. It would take Piston Cup dioramas or Motor Speedway of the South dioramas to the next level by adding that extra level of fun and screen accuracy. I'd especially love to get this weird kind of magenta colored one That one really stands out to me for being a unique color and mold, and you could just barely see that one actually has a piston cup, or I think a McQueen flag attached to it. We actually almost got the one on the far left, Cristina Garcia, in 2017, but she was cancelled. There aren't really all that many significant McQueen variants we're missing from the first Cars movie. They've done pretty much every one you could ask for, and several you probably wouldn't even know to ask for. But I did want to briefly include a McQueen with pop tire, or perhaps two pop tires. Yes, we have finish line McQueen, but that McQueen is also posed to lunge forward, with his front wheels sticking out and with his tongue sticking out, so having a regular McQueen with his back tires popped to recreate more parts of the scene than just the finish line sequence would be pretty nice. Corey Turbowitz's diecast has always looked really weird to me. Ever since I was a kid, I always felt like something was off about it, and years later I realized it was because she's missing her rear view mirrors. I was really hoping that when Corey was first made in Thailand in 2021, they would update her to have the mirrors, since they oftentimes do try to update or fix older inaccurate models. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and to this day, Corey's still missing her mirrors. This white camera car behind the King has stuck out to me for quite a while as a pretty unique camera car. We don't really have any camera cars that are painted all white. Cars that are painted all white in the first place are pretty few and far between in the line. So I think this would be a pretty nice one to get. I think it could potentially reuse a pre-existing mold, maybe like Human's mold or something, but maybe it would benefit from its own. There are a lot of Cars diecasts that I would love to see from McQueen's Dinoco Daydream sequence. We've gotten several over the years, but there are still so many left. One of the ones that I've wanted most for years now has been this blue camera car that takes pictures of McQueen for his photo shoot with his piston cup. Maybe this one is a bit gruesome to ask for, but I really want to see the car that gets disintegrated by the spark plug monster aliens in the Lightning Storm McQueen movie. This one's an easy repaint to do. You could just repaint Frank Pinkerton from Sarge's Boot Camp and you're good to go. And right behind the guy that gets disintegrated, you could actually see that Mia and Tia have a brief cameo in the Lightning Storm McQueen movie. They used their pre-existing Dinoco designs, but with all of the Lightning McQueen stickers removed from it. It took me until only a few years ago to notice that Mia and Tia are in this scene, and ever since I noticed it, they've been some of my most wanted diecasts for the entire first movie. These are easily some of the most obscure items you'll see on this list, but they're also some of my most wanted cars. I just think it would be so great to get a 2-pack of these kind of lost, hidden versions of Mia and Tia. The Sparkplug monsters, or Sparkplug aliens, are also up there as some of my most wanted items from the first Cars movie. According to some old Take 5 Day articles, these might have been considered for a 2010 release. I would absolutely love these. Okay, they would make for such a funny release. They would, of course, probably have to be a deluxe. I assume there would be some assembly required. Then you could just stand them up and have them terrorize all your other cars. It was totally a missed opportunity to not make these in the 2016 or 2020 Dinoco Daydream series. Yeah, they're not living characters, but they're just so unique, they would have been great. A movie-accurate Lightning Storm McQueen is another update that is desperately needed for a classic diecast line item. I really need to see this guy re-released, updated with the missiles with the correct white tip colors, the missile up top, and the corrected spoiler. The original variant is really lackluster. There was also the Comic-Con exclusive variant that fixes some of the problems with the original, but it still doesn't have the corrected spoiler, and it's metallic, and also it's a Comic-Con exclusive, so it's never coming back. And as long as we're talking about Dinoco McQueen variants that need updates, I'm sure Bling Bling McQueen will top many of your lists. As in the movie, his wheels have a ring of silver, a ring of gold behind that, and a gold piston cup. And the diecast just went with silver. There's also a gold variant, but yeah, this has never been accurate, unfortunately. This would be something that would honestly be insanely hard to pull off with the multi-layered different color design, but I think a lot of people would be content if you just simply painted the piston cup gold and maybe painted a few of the spokes gold as well. The fact that we have a diecast based on the guy in McQueen's commercial that he puts Rusty's bumper ointment on is absolutely hilarious, but I've always felt like it was such a missed opportunity to not make his bumper all clean and shiny. I think this would make for a really great, fun, one-off variant of him. His name is Jonathan Wrenchworth, for the record. If they were still doing chases, which of course they haven't done since 2014, or super chases, which stopped back in 2020, this would have made for a great one of those. But nowadays, I think it could pass as a really fun one-off variant, a clean bumper Jonathan Wrenchworth's. Maybe you could even pack him in with that Rusty's accessory can that came with a McQueen back in the day. Back in 2010, we received a diecast called Fred with Fallen Bumper, where the bumper was just barely lower than the rest of him. I think doing Fred with a plastic removable bumper would be a really great idea. Also, the old Fred with Fallen Bumper was lenticular and had his bumper stickers from the end of the movie for some reason. This guy needs an update. We all love a good expression variant, and I'm honestly kind of surprised that we've never gotten a Mac Cab Deluxe release doing one of the funny faces he does in the back of the tanker truck. I don't know what Mac face you want to choose particularly, but I think they're all absolute comedy gold, and any one of them would work. This is another really obscure character variant that I would love to get, and it's another one I actually didn't notice until recently. And by recently, I mean right now. This is the first time, all my years of watching this movie, all my 18 years of watching Cars, this is the first time I noticed that Leroy Traffic, the minivan that drives by McQueen and Mac, actually parks at the truck stop and puts his little mattress down on the ground. And now I desperately want a diecast of Leroy without his mattress, with the mattress as a separate accessory for the poor guy to sleep on. Another character variant I've wanted for a very long time is Wingo with his shades down. He has this sort of sunglass visor thing that goes over his eyes and he raises them up at one point. There are a few different ways you could do this. I'd suggest perhaps just putting a thin, translucent plastic green sheet over Wingo's eyes. You could also just paint this over Wingo's eyes in a way where it doesn't cover up his pupils. There are a few different ways to pull this off. Trev the Train is a super iconic minor character in the first Cars movie who's gone on to appear in several other pieces of media and a wide variety of different toy lines. Trev is easily one of the most notable, most famous, most well-known Cars characters or character variants to not receive a diecast yet. Obviously, this is a character that would be pretty hard to pull off. We know Trev was canceled back in 2010, and we don't even know how they were supposed to be released back then. I think the best way to release Trev would probably be an online exclusive of some kind. I'd say convention exclusive, but that implies it wouldn't be easy to get. I think Trev should be some sort of online offer, just like Barry Diesel back in 2010. It's a real shame the Precision series got canceled before we could get any sort of light-up Sheriff diecast. Perhaps if the line had continued and we got in the Core House, we would have gotten a light-up Sheriff. I think that would have been absolutely amazing. If there's any Radiator Springs car that deserves a light-up variant, it's Sheriff, the one covered in lights and sirens. There aren't all that many variants of Lizzie in the diecast line, and that makes sense. There aren't all that many that you could make. But I think Mattel's really been missing out by not giving us a sleeping Lizzie. Lizzie sleeps all the time. It would be a really easy variant to do, just a simple expression variant. Paint her eyes to be closed, maybe mold a different mouth to make it look like she'd be snoring, and would make for such a fun, great set piece, whether in play or on display in a diorama. I would love to have Lizzie just asleep in the background of my series inside of her house, just hanging out here by the door where she always sleeps. It would be really nice. A McQueen covered in barbed wire is another variant of him that I think would be a pretty solid choice if you have to make a new McQueen from a movie where most McQueens have already been done. Much like my McQueen with pop tires idea from earlier on, we already have a McQueen based on this scene, that being Spin-Out McQueen. But Spin-Out McQueen with the tires on his eyes only appears for a couple of seconds, and for a lot of the scene, McQueen just has this barbed wire on him, so I think it's a pretty solid choice to do. You could have him here as a single covered in barbed wire, or alternatively, you could have it be a 2-pack with a Stanley statue. Maybe this is a special variant of the Stanley statue that comes off of its base and can attach to McQueen, or maybe the base for the statue isn't included at all, and it's just this Stanley statue that can attach to McQueen, and it could be a fun 2-pack with McQueen, Stanley stuck to him, kind of like the road trip trailer packs from 2016. I know a lot of people who really want Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s diecast to come back, but unfortunately this can't be done because Mattel no longer has the rights to make Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dale Earnhardt Inc. merchandise. But if they ever do get the license back, I think it would be really fun to not only re-release Dale Earnhardt Jr., but also do a release of his hauler. You see it right here in the movie, has a very unique hauler design with the entire character on a side profile painted here on the side. People absolutely love getting new haulers. People love Dale Earnhardt Jr. I'm sure collectors would just eat this hauler up. A lot of fun and unique car designs appear in paintings and signs and billboards across the Cars series, and I would really like to see some of these be made as die-casts. I think it would kind of feel like Mattel scraping the bottom of the barrel if they did this. I think people would accuse them of that if that were the case, but I don't really think it's the case. There are some fun things to be done here. I'd especially love to get this Lady Justice reimagined as a tow truck here with the scale and the blindfold and everything that you see painted framed on the wall of the Radiator Springs Courthouse. Minnie here is another character that I think desperately needs an upgrade. While her prototype images used a pretty good color choice for her, her final release, for whatever reason, has this really bright purple that's just not all that accurate to the movie, and she also just doesn't have a facial expression. She has no eyebrows at all. Minnie and Van have been missing from the diecast line since 2017, but when they inevitably return, I really hope that they try a new color scheme for Minnie that's a bit of a darker color. Another item I'm honestly pretty surprised we haven't gotten yet is Transforming Chick Hicks. With how much Mattel loves Transforming McQueen and how much fans and collectors love Transforming McQueen, Chick Hicks' counterpart to this McQueen variant not being released yet is really a shame. I think this is one that, has to happen eventually, right? Right? Or maybe they've just kind of forgotten that this is something they can do since they already did it with McQueen. I don't know. Either way, I think we need to see this. And honestly, I think this is one we need to see soon. This is an item that I think should be one of the next releases from the first movie we get. It's just strange that we've gotten Transforming McQueen several times, we've gotten him as a mini, he was a metallic Super Chase, and the Chick Hicks is just missing. Next time we get Dinoco Daydream theme releases one year, this really needs to be part of it. Another big missed opportunity and surprising exclusion in my opinion is that we've never gotten a Dirty Doc Hudson like the Dirt Track McQueen diecast we've gotten so many times over the years. Yes, we have the Cars 3 Dirt Track Fabulous Hudson Hornet, but I'm talking a classic blank blue Doc, covered in dirt on his sides, and on his wheels, and on his base, and with a nice matte paint job to make him match Dirt Track McQueen. What's that? You want me to mention another update to an inaccurate car? Well, how about McQueen with shovel? In the movie, the shovel is yellow. On the diecast, the shovel is gray for some reason. This is another simple fix, okay? Next time they re-release McQueen with shovel, I think they should go out of their way to make sure that shovel is the right color. The next time they release Guido with paint supplies, I think it would be really great to make Luigi with the wiper. It might be hard to pull off, antennas are always pretty tricky, but if they do a thicker antenna, like with Salute and Sarge or some of the Piston Cup fans, I think it could work. And you could even call this item Luigi with Squeegee, which may very well make it the best Cars diecast name in the history of the toy line. I mean, how could you pass up an opportunity of calling something that? And as long as we're on the subject of Luigi and Guido variants, I'd like to mention Guido with the air canister he uses to refill McQueen's tires. I think this would be another really great one that could complement all the other Guidos with tool guns we've gotten over the years pretty well. And yeah, Guido with canned air doesn't have as good of a ring to it as Luigi with squeegee, but hey, he's got canned air. That's a win in my book. This one seems really stupid, I think, but I'd like to see a version of Wet McQueen with the little bit of cactus that's left on his hood that Red refuses to remove. I think it's as notable in the scene as McQueen being covered with water in the first place, and that got a diecast, so why not do this as well? Just like the Sleeping Lizzie I mentioned earlier, a sleeping tractor is a very easy variant you could do that helps capture how a tractor looks like for a lot of its screen time. Mattel really loves their tractors as of late, and this would be a simple variant that you could easily get out of the way that could really help kids play out tractor tipping better. If I were a kid, I think I would have a blast swapping this out with the Awake one. Scene remakers would have a field day with this. People who do dioramas or setups or just videos where you want background cars, having a sleeping tractor in the back of your tractor field would be really nice. Another obscure variant I'd love to get would be the Dinoco Showgirls without their feather hats. I believe you only see them here in McQueen's third dream sequence. They're really not all that significant, and I don't know why Mattel would choose to make them without their hats when they could just re-release the ones they've already done. I don't even know why they don't have their hats on in this scene, but yet here I am still thinking that they'd make great diecast releases. One of my rules while making this list was not to include anything for the sake of a joke, you know, don't put something on the list because you think it's funny. Choose things that you actually think would make good diecast ideas. My only real exception to this rule is Frank with a piston cup. I think it would be so funny if Mattel one year, re-releasing Frank in the deluxe line, decides to pack him in with a piston cup accessory, make sure it has his name, Frank, written down there, because his name is written on it in the movie. I know usually we don't get names written on the piston cups, but I think it would make it 100 times funnier. You could also give him a new screaming expression, Frank with piston cup, make it happen. The creators of the Cars diecast line have a sense of humor sometimes. This would be a great, funny item to do one year. I would crack up if this ever happened. It would also be really funny to watch collectors buy duplicates of this so that they could get several piston cup accessories. Just amass an army of Franks along the way. Despite being a toy in universe, the Alarm Clock car received its own entry in Meet the Cars, and because of that, I put it here on the list. It doesn't exist in the diecast line. Yes, at D23 one year, we did get a functioning alarm clock with the Alarm Clock car in it, but that's not part of the diecast line. That's not a 155 scale item. That's meant to be an actual replica of the prop from the movie. You could do the Alarm Clock car a few different ways. You could just pack it in as a static accessory, you know, just mold a little plastic alarm clock with a static car stuck to it as a pack-in with a Sally diecast or McQueen diecast. Or alternatively, you could ignore scaling and also ignore the clock part and just release the Alarm Clock car on its own as a single. In 2019, Hydraulic Yellow Ramon was re-released with an updated paint job, finally making Yellow Ramon a more accurate flat yellow color instead of the gold he used to be. Hydraulic Yellow Ramon's updated variant would be re-released in 2022, but unfortunately, we're still missing a non-hydraulic updated Yellow Ramon with this nice new, more accurate yellow color. I'm sure the next time Yellow Ramon is released, he'll be fixed to have this color scheme. It's just a matter of when. The R-Town flashback scene features several more delivery trucks other than Dustin Mellows and Miles Meat Truck Malone, which we already got. There's this one, which was actually supposed to be released in 2017 in the Radiator Springs Classic line, but never saw the light of day. And as long as we're on the subject of cancelled flashback Radiator Springs visitors, there's the blue two-toned car, who was also supposed to be released in 2017. Just like with other cars I've said I could make the entire list full of, I could make an entire list of just Radiator Springs flashback visitors. This one right here is another one of my personal favorite, with a unique design kinda reminiscent of Luis Nash from Cars 3. This background car has a very striking color scheme. I'm pretty sure it's used a few times in the scene. This is another personal favorite of mine from this scene. And another extra I didn't really get a good look at until this rewatch of Cars is this guy talking to Edwin Cranks. Another car that recently exited Ramones and has a brand new paint job with some pretty cool pinstriping, and it looks like a nice metallic design. Everyone knows Edwin Cranks and Greta. They've had diecasts for 15 years now. They're featured in Meet the Cars and Car Finder. Let's get this third Ramone patron out there too. This guy in the scene where they open up the town to interstate travelers is really unique, doesn't really conform to any of the typical shapes a lot of these flashback cars do. You could find him over at the back of the town by Ramones. And while we're on the subject of cars from this scene with more unique shapes, there's also this guy who goes underneath the Welcome Interstate Travelers sign. Since most of the cars we get from the flashback scene kind of conform to one of two shapes, either they're a bit more rounded or they have fins, I think it would be nice to get some that have these more different designs, more unique shapes. A race-damaged Hudson Hornet is another item I'm sure a lot of us would love to get, and it's another one that was planned for a release and was cancelled and unfortunately doesn't have an image. He was supposed to come out in 2010. I could understand why they didn't want to do a race-damaged, severely injured Doc Hudson diecast. I think that's perfectly fine, especially when you consider the fact that Doc's actor Paul Newman passed away only a few years before the diecast was supposed to happen. This is one where I understand why they may not want to do it. You know, you might not want to do a super damaged variant of a character, especially after that character's actor has passed away and the character in universe has as well. This may not be the best decision anymore. I'm honestly pretty surprised Mattel's never made this Ramon. He's raised up, he has his paint gun. That's something they've done several times, you know? Hydraulic Yellow Ramon is hydraulic and has the paint gun. Same with Florida Ramon. This would be a great choice, with only one problem. This Ramon's diecast is called Hydraulic Ramon for some reason. That's what they called the paint job. And Ramon, when raised up, is called Hydraulic Ramon, so this would have to be called Hydraulic Ramon. For years, I always assumed that the helicopter next to Kathy Copter when McQueen gets found was just Ron Hover. But it seems like it's not. This is actually a completely separate helicopter, I'm pretty sure. Ron appears at the beginning of the next race, actually, and that leaves this helicopter here without a name or any merchandise to their name. Which they don't have. They don't have a name. That was a really redundant sentence. My point is, I think they should make this helicopter. Mattel has been releasing Kathy Copter and Ron Hover a whole lot lately, so why not add another helicopter into the mix? They already have the molds, shouldn't be too difficult. Chick Hicks with Thunder Sticker feels to me like the forgotten sibling of Jackson Storm with the Piston Cup Champion sticker. I always hear people say they want to get Piston Cup Champion Jackson Storm as a diecast, since he has these logos on him for a good chunk of the movie. And I never hear anyone really say the same thing for Chick Hicks with this Thunder sticker. Perhaps it's because Chick Hicks already has so many stickers on him, so just having that one wouldn't really make much of a difference, but still, I think it's worth noting. Yeah, it would barely be a difference on the diecast. Maybe they could give him a nice new facial expression to go along with it. I don't know, but again, I still think it could be a worthwhile variant to make. But again, trying to promote a Chick Hicks variant that's new because it has one different sticker on a car with over 300 stickers is kind of a hard sell. While most of the paparazzi cars in the McQueen is Found scene didn't really stand out to me, most of the ones that I think we should get we've already gotten really. This one car really does stand out to me. It's this big SUV with a racing TV camera attached to it that accompanies Corey Turbowitz at the end of the scene when she confronts Doc and thanks him for giving her a call. I like this one not only because an SUV camera car is pretty unique, but also because it has a good bit of screen time and it seems like it's Corey Turbowitz's own personal camera guy, which is really cool and adds a nice bit of world building and lore. This item was canceled in 2017, and I think most people assume that that's who this is supposed to be. I'm not entirely sure on that, as the camera is actually on the wrong side of him, and the color just looks a bit too different to me. I'm not entirely sure, but if it was canceled, it really is a shame. But hey, you guys know how Mattel works. Oftentimes, they'll take a canceled car and end up releasing it several years later. And from one SUV camera car to, well, several others, let's talk about Turtle and Cubby, these two guys right here. These two have always stood out to me as some of the only characters who are named in the movie, but don't have any merchandise. Their names are written on their cameras. I'd also like to shout out the Rust-eze fan next to Daryl Cartrip, a prototype for whom actually appeared in the 2009 Collector Checklist book with the name Timothy Two-Stroke. As most of you probably already know, Timothy Two-Stroke is actually this Screaming McQueen fan who appears later on. I assume somebody messed them up in production. They are pretty similar in terms of accessory and color scheme and all that. So I guess they fully modeled this before learning, oh, that wasn't the one we were supposed to make, awkwardly leaving this background race fan canceled to this day. I think it'd be really nice to bring them back. This next one is, in my opinion, easily one of the least likely cars on this list. Okay, I think almost everything else I said, even the crazy obscure ones, are probably more likely than this guy right here. This is Mika Hakkinen. He replaces Mario Andretti in some German versions of the Cars movie, much like how, more famously, several other characters replaced Jeff Gorvette in the international cuts of Cars 2. We got all those characters as diecasts, some of them getting several variants, but those characters are pretty frequently referenced and exist outside of just the international cuts of Cars 2. I don't think anybody at Disney or Pixar really cares to reference Mika Hakkinen's cameo in the German version of Cars. I'd love to get merchandise of this, but I just think it's never happening. Most people don't even know about this. Sid Vanderkamper is one of those cars that I always kind of forget we've never gotten. The car sitting inside of a kiddie pool with a bunch of lawn ornaments in front of him is so iconic to me. I remember him so distinctly from the Meet the Cars books and in the movie. It's so strange to me that we've never gotten him. He's another release that was cancelled back in 2010, and the prototype of him actually doesn't include any of the accessories that he should definitely come with. If they were to release him nowadays, I'm sure he would come with the lawn flamingos and probably a little kiddie pool accessory to sit him in as well. I really can't see them releasing him without those things, and nowadays, I doubt they would do him without them. If you're going to release him just as is without any accessories, I'm genuinely not going to care that much. It's going to feel like a big letdown to me. For whatever reason, we're missing one of the 3 jets that fly over the Piston Cup Stadium. We have Marco and Stu Bop, who are the ones on the left and in the middle, but we've never received any merchandise or name or anything for the one on the right. It's really strange to me that one of these is missing. I mentioned other cases where we have several cars in a group and we've only gotten 2 of the 3, right? Like the camera car at the beginning of the video, or the helicopter next to Kathy Copter, but I get why we didn't get those. Those are barely on screen and barely as prominent. This 3rd jet is just as prominent as the other 2, yet they haven't been made. Strange exclusions like this, in my opinion, really go to show you just how many notable Cars characters were missing from the first movie. I'm sure it wouldn't be all that difficult to release this 3rd guy, and it would be so nice to complete this set. These 2 technician cars with their little monitors on either side of Bob or Daryl are some more really fun, techie cars that we could add into the mix of the diecast line, and they're unique. A lot of the camera cars are very similar, but these guys being sort of production staff members makes them a bit more special in my eyes. I know this sounds kind of stupid, but these are 2 cars I knew I couldn't do this video without incorporating. I had to mention them. Surprisingly, for whatever reason, they never made a short model Chick Hicks pitty. Instead, they opted to make 2 tall model ones. This is something I never really minded, as Chick Hicks' pit crew is primarily made up of these sort of lankier pitties, but considering the fact that a full pit crew in the eyes of collectors includes a tall pitty, a wide pitty, and a short pitty, it is strange that Chick Hicks' crew is missing one of the key models. And while we're on the subject of the Chick Hicks pitties, I need to shout out the concept of releasing them without their mustaches. This is something I don't really think that we need. Like, I'd rather get a pitty or set of pitties for a racer that doesn't have one yet than get all of these, but still, I want to throw it out there. Maybe next time they do some funny flashback series releases, these would make great new additions. Alright, we're going to need to zoom in for this next one. There we go. I like this guy with a little 95 hat. He's got a pretty fun design. This is a car that I noticed once while making one of my old Cars That Should Be Made videos, and it's really stuck with me ever since as a background character that I really like the design of. And I think nowadays they could definitely reuse the Keith Cone Colin Borev model to make this car. This is another really obscure McQueen variant that I think could be pretty fun, kind of similar in concept to Road Repair McQueen. Getting a McQueen with these sort of asphalt scratches on his front could be a pretty fun variant, just to make for another McQueen in a specific scenario. I think that this design, this weathering detail on McQueen is done a lot better and more prominently in Cars 3, so if I ever do a video like this for Cars 3, I'll probably elaborate on it there. And this McQueen actually marks my last idea for the movie. Now let's move on to the credits, where there are a ton more fun characters to look at. For years, I've thought that Mattel's really been missing out on releasing a tanker truck as part of the hauler line. Just use a pre-existing hauler cab sculpt, like the sculpt of the cab you could see here, and produce a brand new tanker trailer back. It would be a really great concept that could really bring something new and fresh to the hauler line. I think this guy we see driving by on his way to Radiator Springs, or I guess out of Radiator Springs technically, during the credits would be a prime candidate in my eyes. We've received several cars from this scene where Radiator Springs recreates the old Our Town flashback scene. But we've never gotten this green car that acts as a stand-in for Edwin Cranks. This one's been pretty popular with Cars fans for a while now. It's had the fan nickname Grant Greenlight. I also want to shout out the red pinstripe car that it's talking to, just like how Edwin Cranks was talking to one that I mentioned earlier on the list. And since we already threw in Lizzie and a tractor, let's add a sleeping sheriff into the mix as well. We see a wide variety of different cars going by Lizzie's covered in bumper stickers. It's a lot more than just Nick Stickers, who we've received as a diecast several times. This is yet another case of one character from a group getting a name and getting merchandise, and the others being left out. A dirt track variant of Radiator Springs McQueen is another item I'm really surprised we haven't gotten yet. I think it's a pretty great idea. In fact, the Mini Racer line did it a few years ago, and it looks really great. The tuners with tar are another idea I'm sure you've heard 100 times. It's a very popular one with fans. I've seen some beautifully well-made customs of these over the years. I think they're long overdue. The fact that we didn't get them when the tuners were released in the Sheriff's Impound lot line in 2016 is insane. I think just like how we sometimes will get the tuners with flames instead of the regular tuners, one year Mattel just has to bite the bullet and give us tar tuners instead of the regular ones. Benny Caliper, the guy on the side of Mac when he's watching all the Pixar parody movies, is another heavily requested item because he was cancelled back in 2010 and featured in Car Finder and Meet the Cars and all that. People have been wanting this guy for a long time, and I think for him, it's only a matter of time until they choose to uncancel him like Bertha Butterswagon was pretty recently. And finally, the Vroom Around Us Buggus. This appears all throughout the movie, but you get your best look of it in the post-credit scene with Minnie and Van, so I wanted to mention it here. This is another one that I've wanted for years. It was cancelled back in 2010, and in case you were wondering, despite the very small size of these guys, they are of course just bugs in universe, they were planning to make them just the regular size of a Cars diecast, which I think is the right way to go. With an item like this, I could excuse scaling. There's no way you could make it to scale. This would be another really, really great one to get that I'm surprised we haven't seen yet. And there you have it, guys. All of the cars that I'd like to see made from the first Cars movie, just in time for its 18th anniversary. Happy anniversary, Cars. I hope this video showed all you guys that there's still a whole lot to love in this movie as time goes on. I really enjoyed being able to go back through the first movie and find all the different cars that really stood out to me and all the different items that I'd like to see Mattel make. This is, for now, my definitive list of Cars diecasts that I'd like to see made based on the first movie. But of course, there's a whole lot more than just these that you could make out there. These are just my choices, and I'd love to hear all of yours, so let me know what cars you'd like to see in the diecast line from the first movie in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.